Welcome to TAVA skills presentation, and the skill to present today will be how to create a website. And I'll be your tutor for the class. My name is Dr. Onurede. There are four major steps in creating a website. The very first step is getting a domain name. The second step is hosting that domain name, which is also called web hosting. The third step is we're going to choose a building pattern. Are we going to do programming, which in simple explanation means buying a land and building from scratch? Or are we going to use content management system, which simply means buy a house, the house has already been built, buy it, you copy the house, paste on your website, and then you renovate it, which is what modern web designers do now, content management system. So the fourth step is we're going to build with content management system, and the CMS that I use or I will be teaching you guys would be WordPress. So let's start with getting a domain name. What is a domain name? A domain name is a unique name that identifies a website. For example, the domain name for our TAVA lecture website is tavalectures.com. So that tavalectures.com is the domain name. Each website has a domain name that serves as an address, which is used to access the website. Usually, websites have some kind of coding numbers that you don't need to know. But having the domain name saves us stress of having to have to type those code numbers. So the domain name is it's more like your site identity. So you could pick a domain name today. Let's say my name is akinforreal.com. So akinforreal.com becomes my domain name. So how do I get a domain name? So there are several sites that you could buy domain names from. So if you've chosen the reliable domain registrar, so if you find a domain availability checker tool, all this I will explain practically. Then you run a domain name search, you pick the best available option, you finalize your order and complete the domain registration. Then you verify the ownership of the new domain name. Don't let this grammar bore you. I'm going to explain this as we go into the practical session. So examples of sites where I can buy domain name from, there are several sites, but the popular ones we know, it's domain.com, Bluehost, HostGator, GoDaddy, Namecheap, DreamHost, Shopify, and buy domains. So step 2, hosting the domain name. That's web hosting. What does hosting the domain name actually mean? So according to Wikipedia, a web hosting service is a type of internet hosting service that allows individuals and organizations to make their website accessible via the World Wide Web, that's www. Web hosts are companies that provide space on a server owned or leased for use by clients, as well as provide internet connections, typically in data centers. To explain all this plenty grammar with a picture, this is what we have. Excuse me. So this is me here, this is my computer, and let's assume I've purchased a domain name as I've explained in step 1. I need to have what is called a web host. A web host, they provide servers. Now this is like a web host server. They are the ones that, should I use the word, manage my domain name. So I buy a domain name, I pay for a domain name space on this web hosting server, and they make this domain name available on the internet for several users to be able to get access to my domain name. So if this is Shola in London and Shola types www.domainname.com, now domain name is my website name, for example. So if Shola types it there, how Shola is able to see my website from London is because what? The web hosting server actually makes my domain name viewable on the internet. So this is the simple explanation of web hosting. So it's not enough to actually get a domain name. You need to get a hosting site or a web host server, and there are several examples which I will show us on the next slide. So when these web hosters host your domain name, it's available on the internet for several website visitors to be able to view your website. So more or less, step 1 and step 2 simply means getting a domain name and getting a web host, and then we are ready for people to be able to see our website. But that's not all. We still have to do step 3 and step 4 for your website to be ready for public view. So web hosting sites, the several ones we have are Namecheap, Bluehost, HostGator, Hostinger, SiteGround, DreamHost, GoDaddy, and HostBlast. And the good news is that most of these web hosting sites, they actually offer buying of domain names alongside hosting your website for you. GoDaddy does that, HostGator does that, and HostBlast does that. The one that I use most is HostBlast and probably HostGator too, and also with GoDaddy. So this is just a simple explanation of getting a domain name and hosting the website. So we'll go to the practical session where I'll show you guys how to do step 1 and step 2 together. Thank you very much.